I'm very happy to welcome all of them on stage. So the panel discussion, capability building in charities. We'd like to remind you again about the Pigeonhole Q&A. No changes except for the login code is now CCP2 for your Q&A. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, may we present to you now Mr. Dennis Lee, moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thanks, and once again, a warm welcome this morning to this annual Charities Conference. So I think we've done a good presentation, and actually that's also one of the notes or takers that I can take away for myself as a moderator. I used to have to memorize all the CVs of all the panelists. And now, that job has been taken away. So, my role is continuously evolving. Okay, a lot of things has been discussed this morning. We discussed things like internal controls, risk management, strategy. And there's a whole lot of capabilities that I think board needs to have, employees in your organization needs to have, right? And beneficiaries as well as the public at large needs to know about. Right, so this is a session for you to take back and keep yourself abreast of what are the changes. But these are just some of the hard facts, the hardware. I like to call it the hardware. If you look at the way Singapore is going, right, with the 5G network and how technology, right, is certainly improving a lot of things, especially in this sector. The capabilities, put plain and simple, just has to evolve, all right? Whether we like it or not, as board members, as executive management, right? We have to constantly up our skills, right? So one of the first questions that I'm going to pose to my fellow panel members is about this hardware, right? So we have things like IT, things like digitalization. Right, we have things like law, which is legal and compliance is always changing. We all know in the room, there's always has to be, well, if you're lucky, an accountant on board to actually help to advise on the finances and so forth. But that cannot always be said the case for smaller charities. Right, so you sometimes have a core gap or skills gap there. Right, so my question, maybe if I can start with Fermin, right? What do you think are some of the hardware or the core competencies that needs to be put in place, right, in an organization that wants to grow and sustain?
Let me speak as one that has spent a lot of the last 5 years trying to recruit people to join the sector. I find that and it's going to be a bit controversial, but I hope you understand that this comes from actual experience. A lot of people want to join the sector. They want to join the sector because they want to contribute. They want to give back to society. And they're less specific about the cause. They're not quite clear. It could be cancer, and it could be children, or it could be... They're not quite sure exactly what it is. They just know that they want to do something that helps. I find that this is a useful trait, and one that allows us to already bring people in and then educate them about what it is we want them to do. And that we don't necessarily have to wait until they are passionate about our specific cause for us to bring them in. Because there are many people out there that just want to be able to do something. Take advantage of that fact and bring them in. However, at the same time, most people that I speak with, particularly ones that want to join boards, the first thing I ask them is, have you ever volunteered? If the answer is no, then I usually tell them, then go volunteer first. Go spend 3 months, go spend 6 months at least. Go volunteer with some frequency. Don't just go distribute food once. Don't just go befriend once. Go spend some time being a teacher aide in a school. Go spend some time in a palliative care center like CGC, and understand how the sector works, understand what it's about. And again, it doesn't really matter what you volunteer in, as long as you volunteer somewhere. So the point I make is I wouldn't wait until people are passionate about our specific cause before we bring them on. because most people are passionate about just the idea of helping. But do give them opportunities to volunteer, because I think that helps.
Fantastic. Fantastic. How about Dr. Ang? Perhaps from the regulator's point of view?
My brothers and sisters, you have heard presentations on we need to do better. You probably have heard presentations that we need to step up governance. Have you asked yourself that with all this demand imposed on you, can you cope? Can you cope? Well, if you take a zero-sum games, it will be something like that. Yes, COC, some people like to call me watchdog. Do I really like watchdog? I cannot understand, but never mind. COC, you notice, and then from the circular, you require additional submissions. And from my chairman, you probably heard we need to really, because trust is the only currency that we have, and therefore we need to step up trust. And maybe from other person, you need to step up your people, your process, and your structures. One way is to take a zero-sum game and say that you do more of this and less of that. So one of you all have to come to me and say, you know, your 30-70% have to shift. If you want us to build more in-house capabilities, perhaps you should consider 50-50%. i.e., for every dollar you receive, 50 cents are used for building these capabilities. Yes? Yes? How many of you think yes? Put out the hand. Hey, this is not a trick question. Don't worry.
Don't be shy. Don't be shy.
I'll show you.
It's not loaded.
No trick. Or you think that 50-50 not enough. What about 60-40 lah? Still not enough. Cannot lah. I cannot go more than that already. But my brother and sister, the reason why I ask you this question, I'm glad that many of y'all don't put out a hand, because you and I know it's not a zero-sum game. My brother and sister, particularly from the small charities, it doesn't make sense for you to, for example, build all the capability yourself. Why should you have the capability? What you want is you want to have access to the capability, not to have the capability and pay for it. Good example. Many of your small charities in particular, you are stepping up your internal controls. Does it mean to say that you must have an internal auditor? Not the volunteer, but the one that is professional? My answer is no. Why? Because you can have an external auditor, you can have an internal auditor through the shared services. That's why we created shared services, so that you no need to what? You no need to pay for the development. What you want is only to use it. So my brother and sister, don't be frightened. Don't worry about more governance. Don't worry about more capabilities. But what you need to do is, you must be prepared to change the way you operate. For example, to be asset-light, program-heavy.
Yeah, it's accountant talk. Asset-light. No, I guess maybe just to build on further with Commissioner, it's about outsourcing, right? And it's about really having that courage to say that, hey, I don't know, right? And I don't have these capabilities, and I should reach out to others, right? This is all part of the ecosystem. Perhaps, Ellen, maybe your thoughts on sharing what are the core competencies?
Actually, I come up from a very small charity. So small that sometimes people don't even know we exist. That's the silver ribbon. We do mental health advocacy. We don't own assets, but we do have a group of people who are very passionate about what they are doing despite the fact that mental health, wellness is not something that goes down very well with many, many people. And people actually shun us as well. Okay? So, just drawing from my general experience as a volunteer, so long ago, we all started out with this eagerness to help people. Don't care what it is, so long as we can help, we help. And then slowly we're drawn into various different organizations of different strengths and capabilities. And from there, we get to know each other. And we always keep our purpose in focus. Why are we there in the first place? Asset building was never a consideration, actually, but more of how to get things done. How do we get people to come in, share our purpose, share our dreams, share what we are doing? Because we cannot be there forever. So I guess as Singapore progresses and we become richer, more people get educated and things like that, more capable people, more professionals are joining the boards, joining the organizations and things like that. We start to think about how to progress further. And I guess that's where all these rules about governance and things like that all came in. And of course, there comes a time when everything gets so expensive, we have to go into fundraising. Some are more successful, some are not so successful. The successful ones are very successful. And as a result, I think they need more people to govern, to help to govern. So you need to get in the professionals. And as we know, charities have actually, the pie for charity has actually grown so big that it becomes a big question. And that's when all the rules come in governance. I actually welcome what Commissioner is doing, giving us the capability that we all lack, whilst leaving us to do what we do better in terms of staff, in terms of volunteers, in terms of management. And this capability building is becoming more and more important because there are more and more rules to comply with. And also because there are more subsidies and grants available for the taking. And therefore, there were past instances which actually alerted us to how to manage monies that we collected from the public and from the government, and to make sure that they are applied where they are supposed to. So we actually welcome this because it also means that we have a time to rethink and review what we are doing, not only in terms of the volunteers, the board, as well as the staff, but also how do we reach out to the people that we are helping with more confidence, to tell them that we actually have all these capabilities. Whatever that we lack, we look to the government or the relevant agencies for help. So this is something that's ongoing, and I think that's very, very important that we should do so.
It's part of building an inclusive system. Now, just to hear from Su Ching, right, from the SUSS angle, right, she was telling me earlier on about structured learning and unstructured learning. So structured learning, you have your courses, your modules, and so forth. But she's also experimenting with a very different way of teaching, and she told me that she will share later with all of us. So I have yet to hear it, honestly. But over to you, Su Ching.
Yeah, Dennis, we tend to be very disobedient. So I'm not going to address your question.
Okay. That's a first.
I very much would like to address Fermin's question about, or his comments about hard to get people into the sector. You made a wonderful presentation, really hit the nail on the head. That about getting people into the social service sector and about building our capabilities so that we can also be world-class in social sector. Building capabilities, yes, a lot of training is such. But wouldn't it be wonderful if we are able to validate skills and say that this person has the best propensity to succeed in the social service sector? And in fact, at the university, we are already prototyping such a system. You might have heard it's called recognizing prior learning, which means to say that when we started doing that, it was because we were concerned about the soldiers. We call them the Inche, and apparently there's also the Lauche. Yeah? They were exiting the army with lots of skill sets, but no paper qualification. The important thing is that when they leave the army, they must go into new employment. But nobody has given them a paper qualification to say that they have skills. And we have always been talking as part of the Skills Future about meritocracy of skills, not just meritocracy of paper qualification. So you know who are the best people to get into the social service sector, and those are the volunteers. If their skill set can be validated, they can be put into the different organizations that fit their skill sets. And we are really looking into that. Now, we were also talking about core competencies and the need to innovate. Now, that is very important, but I think we don't position ourselves as a profit organization. We have heard a lot about it today, about how the corporate structure, how it should grow. Yes, we can borrow the best practices from the private sector. But like the private sector too, if you have read the book by Chris Zook, I think, Profit from the Core and Beyond the Core, when we want to expand, when a charity wants to expand, it must be expanding to what is called the adjacent sector. So for example, we see things like the social service sector growing, but it will eventually overlap with the healthcare sector. And that is where the growth is. And the reason why I'm talking about this is now I'm wearing my hat as director of the center. We are always looking for jobs for people who need to be re-employed, trained, re-employed, put into a sector, and we find that this sector is growing.
Excellent, excellent. Now, just one of the questions that came up, and this is the one with the most number of votes, right? I was just going to read the question. Any ongoing sustainable manpower funding for charities who solely depend on general public donations? That's the question. So that you can attract the talent, and lower packages do not attract talents at all. This is a hard truth. So, again, that's the question. Whether there's any sustainable manpower funding. With that, besides Dr. Ang, who is most suitable to give a response to this, maybe you want to kick it off? Yeah.
My brother and sisters,
The second.
my earlier reply to you, the statement I make, I hope is to give you a mindset shift. And the mindset shift is not about working hard. The mindset shift is about working smart. For example, earlier I shared with you that there are things that you should focus on what you do best. I fully agree with what Alan Lee have shared. Very wise. You focus on what you do best. Whatever you don't do best but is required you to do, you see whether you can get someone else to do for you so that you unleash the bandwidth to focus on your core purpose and core missions. Why I want to repeat? Because these statements or this request you make has the assumption that whatever you want to do more, you need more manpower. Are you sure? Are you sure you need more manpower? I give you an example. I went to a Hindu temple 2 days ago or 3 days ago. As many of you all know, I visit you all. I make it a point that my purpose of visiting you is not to investigate on you. But some of you all see me, run away. You don't do that, please. Don't. My purpose of visiting you is actually is for one thing, is to go to the charity and thank you and show my appreciation for the good work done. 99.9% of you, I need to show gratitude. Singaporeans want to show gratitude. So I went to this Indian temple, they welcomed me, and they showed me something which is, I think, cheap, good, and fast. Yes. You see, when I go there, there's a religious service. So you go to a religious service. Instead of payment, I saw the QR code. Yeah, you no need to pay by money. You use your handphone and electronic money went through. And on top of that, there is a point of sale systems. Depending on what religious service you want, it then print out a coupon for you. telling you where to go, what to do, what time is your service. So there's no time wastage. Then I find out they got plan to link the point of sales to the accounting systems. So as a result, they no need the clerk. In the past, they need one clerk to record all this, and because they are afraid that, I always check on books, and if the book don't balance, they think I will jump on them. Sometimes they employ 1.5 clerks. But now with the computerized systems, not only is save manpower, it gives better governance. You know why? Because everything is recorded. 冇咩招. Means no horse run. Means that everything is transparent. Now, because of that, they share with me. They're going to share it with the auditor. And I told them, I will also highlight to the auditor, especially to ISCA. With that, it means what? The risk is lowered. I expect the audit fee to be lowered accordingly. So my brother and sisters, before you jump on saying one more manpower, one more budget, I really urge you, in tomorrow's context, it's no longer about working hard. It's about working smart. And there are 3 words I want you to remember. Cheap, good, fast.
Excellent means of getting us to remember cheap, good, and fast.
Dennis,
Yes.
can I give
Su Xing, yes.
Can I give another example of how you can scale without asking for more money and more resources? Lots of resources out there. Let me give you an example of what we do at this Loving Heart. We sort of modularize our projects. So, for example, we have a project which is called the Yu Hua Peer Support Group. Caregivers got together. They started a little movement where they visit homes of people who have been identified, and they do a simple case management of these beneficiaries, right? And it's a small group. But then this particular model can be modularized and exported to another zone. In another zone, we'll ask, hey, you have a lot of elderly in your area, but we will teach you how to look after the elderly in your area. So you don't need extra manpower. You're creating opportunities for that particular zone to do the same thing without you increasing your manpower. And as a volunteer center, we hope to export this to other constituencies as well.
So in the corporates side, they always talk about, still delivering but not sacrificing on quality. That's one of the concepts, which is the next one that I'm leading to. We talk about passion and purpose, right? And passion and purpose ultimately has to drive the reason why, the organization exists and the long-term goals, so on and so forth. But what we just described is also process, right? Bringing in technology, bringing in automation, bringing in digitalization to make things work faster and better. But often or not, there has to be a balance, right, between the two. So I wanted to hear from Fermin, what do you think in terms of this innovation and this disruption? Are we doing it purely to be on the bandwagon and to be popular, or are we doing it clearly with a purpose-driven intent?
Actually, if you ask me, I don't think we're doing enough of it at all. Not for any purpose. Not just to be on the bandwagon, because actually a lot of what I still see is, oh no, we're a people sector and we're all about people touch. I don't want to take away from the fact that we are a people sector and that we still require touch. But when was the last time you actually spoke to a banker in a bank? And most of us would not think that the bank no longer thinks that customer satisfaction is important. However, they have rethought the way they think of customer satisfaction to, are you getting cheap, fast, good service? And if that means that you're going to do it through the internet or through your phone, that's the way to do it. DBS is now one of the top, I just saw an article come out, one of the top 20 innovative organizations in the world. And they're in the same category as Netflix and people like that. We may not think of it that way, but what they have done is they have Now 40% of the revenue in the last 5 years has shifted from being traditional banking to online services. No reason why we can't think like that. No reason why we can't think that we can introduce innovation to help us deliver better services. Even if you just bring it back to the two comments that we just heard now, the basic idea would continue to be the same. Can you improve on your back office? Or can you improve even in the way that you deliver some of the services? Related to the question before, which is the pay, if you follow the logic of what Brother Ang was saying, is if you no longer need that 1.5 persons to look after the numbers so that he is satisfied, because the computer system can do it, then you're saving that money. Part of it is going to go, of course, to pay for the system, but part of it hopefully should go to paying better everybody else in your organization. And that's how you start to think about how you can improve how things get done. We implemented iShine Cloud, which is on the flyers that you all have on your bag. iShine Cloud has the same purpose, is so that you don't have to invest the money in services and in people that you can avail yourselves of this. So part of the idea of trying to then deliver better pay, as the question before mentioned, is to ensure that you can streamline your processes so that the savings you can use to pay better.
Ellen?
Yeah, in terms of pay, I think we have, for a long, long time, run away with this idea that social workers must have a good heart, do good things, and don't have to be paid a lot of money. I think that is something that is a myth, okay? Especially when cost of living in Singapore is so high. Everybody, even a social worker, also needs to raise a family and to have mortgages to pay, car loans to pay, and things like that. So actually what we did was that we actually harmonized our workers' salary, our social workers' salary with the NCSS, the social service sector salary. So that, first of all, that gives them an uplift of themselves, that they are just as good as any other professionals, because we know that social service salary sector is packed to a certain scale, and that it is really market rate, so to speak. So our staff do not think that they are being underpaid, and that because they are paid just as well, the motivation to work harder is even there. And actually, in terms of cost and things like fast, cheap, and good, what we do is that instead of sending our staff regularly for courses and things like that, we invite international speakers by organizing global summits. And usually when global summits are organized in Singapore, a lot of people want to come. Okay, not only just for the summit itself, but because Singapore has already got the reputation of being a conference center. And when we get all these international speakers into Singapore to attend and give their views and their expertise and things like that, we're actually giving a valuable lesson not only to people in the same industry, but also to our staff and our board as well. They learn something from that without having to spend a lot of time, money, going overseas and learn something else. So I think these are things that we could leverage on.
Good idea.
True. So I think just maybe on perhaps the last question, since we are almost running out of time. Now, in the various other sectors, right, we heard earlier Minister talking about industry transformation roadmaps, right, and how there's a very structured approach, right, towards digitalizing and skills upgrading and so on and so forth. And we don't have quite the same term coined here for our sector, right? Now, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think we need such a structured approach, or do we do it based on, navigating it as it comes along, or do we already have something in place that is almost like that, but shies away from directly calling it an ITM, right? Perhaps maybe Su Ching, do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, there is a skills competency framework for the social service sector. There is. But the social service sector can be looked at from a very structured perspective, but I think that's the wrong thing to do. The framework is just a framework to guide. In the end, it has got to be the values that you're going to impart from your VWO. Okay? But no, the skills framework is very good because you are now very clear about what you need the kind of capabilities you need, and the capabilities are actually translated into courses. So you don't now have to go around looking for courses because it's all laid down very clearly for you. For this job description, you need this set of skills. But having said that, I think what is important when we talk about capability building is not just about attending courses, it's the outcome that we want, right? So I suggest, and I'm also guilty of it, Brother Hakseng, I'm guilty of it. I need to have a roadmap training for my charity. And the roadmap training means very clearly the board members, if they're in this role, what are the skill set they need? The center manager, what skill set they need? Very targeted training, and it must be a roadmap.
Ellen, wish list perhaps?
Actually, I think that there is no standard thing to be done for a social worker. How do you teach compassion? How do you teach that passion and the commitment that we need for doing what we are doing? These are things which you can talk and talk and talk and talk. People can come and listen, but if they don't have it, they don't have it. They don't want to practice it, you can't force them. All right. So I think lest we let people run away with the idea that, if you want to be a social worker, you must possess all this string of things, otherwise you cannot be a social worker. I think please don't run away with the idea. What we need in the social service sector is people with passion. People with that, just a simple wish to want to help. And so long as you are helping, you are doing a great job. You don't have to possess qualifications, you don't have to possess the best practices and things like that. So long as you know that you are doing the right thing, helping people, making people happy, lessening the burden of the people that you are helping, I think that's good enough.
Perhaps?
There are lots of things in place, actually. For board members, we created a whole set of competencies based on the Compass model from CNPL. So a lot of what we have is competency-based. For social workers, there is a framework that we follow. There's a framework being created for therapists. There's a framework being created for psychologists. We have a whole managerial and leadership suite, both at SSI and at SUSS. So the structure is there. I do agree, though, that just because we have a structure, it doesn't mean people are taking advantage of it. So it's not just enough to come to the course. It is much more important to make sure that as many people as possible are trained properly, and that you can then deploy that training by proper organization design. So it's a means to an end. It's not an end unto itself.
Okay, so I think with that, I mean, just before we sort of close off your closing comments and any takeaways you want to give the audience, just on that topic of cost and pay alone, there was already 6 different questions that were on that. So I think those are definitely a concern, right, for this group here today in terms of how do we attract the right people, right? And I think I just wanted to, before sharing the mic with everyone, to give a takeaway. The key thing that I felt was that came out at me very clearly was that in this sector, we don't really necessarily need the best people. We probably need the right people. And how do we find the right people, right? No amount of framework and no amount of capability structure can define and ensure that 100% you will get the right person, right? It's all about the sharing of stories, the learning from experience, and hopefully the interaction through the ecosystem, which allows us to better make that judgment call. So with that, I mean, perhaps I just go around the table and just share maybe if there's anything that you would like to give as a takeaway to the group.
Ladies first.
Okay, the little lady shall start first. Now, I think building an organizational culture is very, very important. That's the most important capability. And that creates also a great enabling environment. So I will just read this to you. It's about trust. And I think the most important value is to have trust in the organization. So think of the limitless potential you could unleash if every member of your team was free to do their best work and share their best ideas, knowing that you value and respect them as unique individuals, determined to make their stamp on the world. Trust the people, trust your team, and you'll be surprised how much value they can give back.
Thank you. Well, for me, I think mindset change is very important. We have to change our mindset in many of the ways we do our things. And of course, the most important mindset is actually be open to changes. Change has to come as time evolves. And change is always for the better if we believe that that is so.
We'll let you finish. Okay. I do want to take the point, so I'm going to use my closing comments to answer the question about pay in just a short second. Pay is important, but pay is not the only thing. So also don't fall into the trap to thinking that pay is the only thing you need to attract people into the sector. We've done studies on this, and we actually ask people two types of questions. The people that want to come into the sector is why do they want to do it, but we also ask people who are in the sector why are they still here. And because that's important also to know what keeps people in the sector, not just what brings them in. And what we find is that usually the reason they come or the reason they stay, pay never comes up. They don't come for pay. They also don't stay for pay. Pay just needs to be fair. It just needs to be, I think you put it well, it just needs to be at a level where it is no longer an issue. It is no longer a discussion. People come into the sector because they find like-minded people, because they find that the work is meaningful, because they find that usually they can feel a sense of realization at the end of the day, but also because they feel that they're growing as professionals, that they're learning new things, and they can put those things into practice. If you want to attract people, what you need is a good culture. What you need is a good place to work. Don't fall into the trap of thinking pay is what matters, but also don't fall into the trap into thinking that pay doesn't matter. The whole idea is pay should be taken off the table by making it fair. And then I'll sit back and...
My brothers and sisters, I know you have heard much about what you need to do, and therefore you must be wondering with all these things. And then here the Commissioner of Charity say, I must do it cheap, good, and fast. Add more pressure to you. But I want to assure you one thing, my brothers and sisters. Whatever thing we do, I must not dampen the spirit of giving. That's why the vision of the Commissioner of Charities is one of a thriving and trusted charity. But thriving comes first. Because I can have 100% trusted charity, but everybody find it very troublesome to give because as a result, they don't give. My question, what for? What for? Trust. A trusted charity must be a means to the end. And what is the end? The end must be a thriving charity. So I want to assure you that I will never overburden you to the extent that we kill the passions, to the extent that I may win the battle, but I lose the war. Okay, my brother and sister? This assurance you hear from me, loud and clear. Thank you, my brother and sister.
Thank you. Warm round of applause for the panelists.
All right, thank you very much indeed, panelists. And moderator, Mr. Dennis Lee, it's our pleasure now to invite Mr. Ang Hao Yao of SIAS to present a token of appreciation to the moderator and our panelists. Thank you very much, Mr. Dennis Lee, partner RSM Singapore, moderator, for panel discussion 2, capability building in charities. A lot of insight, a lot of passion, and, off the cuff exchanges. We'd like to thank our presenter earlier and also panelist, Dr. Fermin Diaz, Deputy Chief Executive Officer and Group Director, Human Capital and Organization Development, National Council for Social Service. Thank you so much, Commissioner of Charities and also Deputy Secretary MCCY, Dr. Ang Hak Seng. Thank you very much indeed, Ms. Ellen Lee Gek Hun, Justice of the Peace, PBM, President Silver Ribbon Singapore, former Member of Parliament for Sembawang GRC, and consultant Belinda Ang Tang and partners. Last but not least, we'd like to thank Professor Teng Su Ching, President, Loving Heart Multi-Service Centre and Director, Centre for Continuing and Professional Education, Singapore University of Social Sciences. A very quick photo opportunity with everyone on stage.
The riverbank talks of the waters of March. It's the promise of life, it's the joy.
Thereafter, we would be handing the microphone back to Dr. Ang for his closing remarks before we have some notes for everybody.